Hi everyone and welcome to Chic Chats. I am Jeanette Ipaputwason. I am the co-founder of Twason Racing and the author of Chic Driven. And we're here to give you your best life in bullet points. It's October and it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And today we're going to have a talk about boobs. Don't be shy, this talk will save lives. Did you know that 40,000 people can die of breast cancer per year? And that includes men. So I just realized that men can die of breast cancer also. So today we will have two guests. One will share her journey on what happened, how she got over it, and how she survived it. And the other is from a doctor because I know everybody is scared to go to the hospitals or their doctors because of COVID. So we're going to give you a practical tip on how you can screen yourself at home. So let us welcome our first guest. She is the president and CEO of Greenbulb PR, a founding member of the Creator and Influencer Council of the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Leah Caringal. Hello, Leah. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me here, Janet.
I was first shy, to ask you because I didn't know if you were okay to talk about this. So, but I think it's very important that we can share some of the journey of people who successfully survive this, kasi to give others a fighting chance also. So, tell me about it. How did it happen? Or first, let me tell me about yourself first, Leah.
Okay, well, I'm an entrepreneur like you, Janet. I run several creative PR and communications agencies. I've always just been into PR and communications. So that's who I am. A few
So,
years ago, during a routine checkup, my doctor found something, and they basically just told me to come back.
okay. And then tell us what happened.
And okay, so it was a routine checkup. If there's anything that I do right every year, I do my annual exams, executive checkup. The same time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And 7 years ago, I did my checkup like any other year, and I thought I was cleared and all that. But I got a call from my doctor, uh, basically to say we kind of found something, but we're not sure. Why don't you come back? And I said sure, but you know, being running a business is not easy when it comes to time management. So I just said okay, but I only have 1 hour. I hope that this is an easy thing, right? Because yeah, we'll just have a biopsy. So I walked in thinking, well, it's a biopsy, it can't be that bad, right? And so I did have a biopsy the same morning that I was called. And it was very painful. So those people who will have to go through it, just beware that it is not pleasant, but it's a necessity. You have to do it, right? So I did that. And unfortunately, the results, and even to this day, the results will not come out until a few days later, which is, perfectly fine by me, except that 7 years ago, the day that I had my biopsy, the next day I was leaving for New York. So I just told the doctor, because I thought it was nothing, right? But this is nothing. So I said to the doctor, could you email me the results? But if you could do me the favor of making it simple layman language, I don't want any doctor medical speak because I would understand it. So it's just simply, do I have cancer or not? Right? And so while in New York, and I was there for a conference. A few days later, I got an email from my doctor basically saying, well, you have cancer and it's stage this and that. And, the minute you come back from your trip, come and see me again so we can talk about options. And so that was that. So that was 7 years ago. Yeah, 7 years ago this month.
So, Leah, when they do the biopsy, they actually get the mass first, right? So it
Yes,
was an
they did.
operation to begin with already.
Well, the biopsy that they did was they have and these things are so high tech now. The biopsy they did, it was almost like a gun like equipment where they kind of put the gun like equipment near where the mass is and get a little piece of it, right? So they didn't
Okay.
technically they did open me up. They just have that
Okay.
little gun to kind of to get some samples from that area of my breast. So there,
Okay. So you got the diagnosis, right? So I think you were in New York. How did you feel? What was your initial reaction?
I was devastated because I was like, holy
Okay.
cow, the whole unknown, the whole, and you hear people dying of cancer. So obviously I was deathly. I mean, I was really deathly afraid, right? And that at the time it was early days, so the doctor couldn't even tell me what kind it was, what treatment options I need to do. I mean, this is all email, so I couldn't even ring her and say, "Tell me, tell me everything that you can." So I really needed to get back to the Philippines and meet up with her. Meantime, while I was in New York, I spoke to my friend's sister, who's an oncologist. And she
Okay.
basically gave me the lay of the land. Parang she was saying, well, if it's really cancer and if it's stage XYZ, these are the things that you have to do. And then if it's not that, it's going to be this. So I knew already, what would be in store for me even before I got back to Manila.
So Leah, was cancer part of is it part of a family background? Did anybody in
No,
your family also
no,
have
no. That's
Oh,
why I
okay.
think that's why I was also surprised because I'm the first one in my family on both
Okay.
sides
Okay.
who's gotten breast cancer. So my father's
Wow.
side with his, and they're 11 siblings. So can you imagine how many cousins I have on that side? None of them
Yeah.
had breast cancer. And then my mom's side, they are four brothers and sisters. And I have cousins with them as well on that side. None of them had breast cancer. So I was the first on both sides of my family who was diagnosed. I think until now.
So you were telling me that one of your friends gave you like the list of options.
Right.
So what made you decide to take the particular treatment that you got? Because I know some people were like doing
So,
natural, some people are doing homeopathic or
okay.
something.
So my cancer is stage 1A. So it's
Okay.
early detection.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I caught it in time. I caught it early on, which is great. So in terms of treatment option, the easiest for me to understand and the chances of me surviving it was doing the scientific way, which meant I had to go through an operation, lumpectomy, after which I'd have to go through radiation and possibly chemotherapy and then hormone treatment.
Leah, so your friend told you about this, your oncologist friend gave you options. What made you decide to take this particular treatment that you took?
It was a very easy decision for me. My objective was to be rid of cancer, right? The easiest, the most
Okay.
efficient way possible. And that way was to have, the scientific way, to go to the oncologist, to go and have operation. And after the operation, the choice would be either chemo or radiation or both, and then hormone therapy. So to me, it was very easy. It was a choice where I needed to get out of a situation that I didn't want. So what was the shortest kind of fastest way to do that? And to me, it was really going the scientific doctor way, which is oncologist.
Okay. So during that journey, so you did the whole process. What 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 was the experience like?
It was a bit daunting, not because of the operation itself, because that was actually easy. It was the preparation for that. So what does that
Okay.
mean? I'm single, so I have no dependents. I have no partner. So what I meant about preparation was I needed to prepare finances because it costs. These things cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
And back then, when I asked the doctor, well, how much do you think everything will cost? It was about, at that time, a million, a little less than a million pesos, right? And at that time, my health insurance wasn't covering that. It was only covering a part of it. So it was the prep work that was kind of more stressing for me than the actual process itself. I mean, the actual operation itself. So getting my finances ready, getting my documents ready in case if anything happened to me, what will happen to my to my company, to my properties, to my all that, right? Who will pay for it, all that. Right? So it's preparing myself emotionally and financially for the journey that is cancer. That was more taxing than the actual operation, the actual radiation, and whatnot.
So Leia, you discussed that it's more daunting with the preparations in terms of paperwork, but during the process, diba? Can you take us through like what was the normal process when you have it?
So what I elected to have done was a lumpectomy, which
Okay.
meant that they removed the mass, just a mass
Mm-hmm.
of your breast that was infected with that had cancer cells. So they just removed a part of your breast plus radiation. So,
Okay.
which to me was, knowing that I have to have time to work, that I couldn't really stop working, that I had a business to run. The easiest option for me was to have a lumpectomy, which meant that I was just in the hospital overnight. I actually stayed
Mm-hmm.
2 nights, and after that, there's I think a month of rest, and after for the wound to heal. After that, I started 33 sessions of radiation, and by 33 sessions, I mean every day for 33 days, except on weekends. I had to go to the hospital to have my radiation session. And so I had 33 sessions of that. After that, there is, I have to take medication for essentially 5 years at that time, which is hormone therapy, which is actually essentially just taking medication. But it's now, since I was diagnosed, it's now 10 years. So those are the things that I had to do:
Okay.
lumpectomy, radiation, and medication. Thankfully, I didn't have to go through chemotherapy.
Okay.
So I think at least one less heartache.
What's the difference between radiation and chemotherapy? I thought it was the same.
Chemotherapy essentially is, oh, no, no, no. Some people say chemotherapy is kind of worse to handle because essentially what chemotherapy, if you need it, and thankfully I didn't have to, chemotherapy simplistically is a cocktail of chemicals that they kind of pump into your body, right, to get rid of the cancer cells. But what it also does is it kills other cells, healthy or otherwise, which is the reason why you have to be really strong as a person, physically, mentally, and whatnot, to go through, the whole chemo, radiation, all that.
Okay.
And while
But you didn't
radiation
lose your
naman is
hair on.
no, no, no. So you normally lose your hair when you go through chemotherapy. But
Okay.
because I didn't go through chemotherapy, I went through radiation. I lost a lot of weight. Essentially, what radiation does is it hits your area that's affected with radiation, like what you would do. You know how when you have your X-ray done,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know how when you go through an X-ray room, the guy who normally helps you will go behind the counter with the wall, right? You remember if you
Yeah,
ever
yeah,
done
yeah,
your
yeah.
X-ray, that
Mm-hmm.
that's a super short bolt of radiation. What most cancer patients do is radiation where you have a few minutes of a day of that.
Okay.
So
So,
what happens is your skin gets burnt, as you progress the radiation. Remember, it's 33 days of radiation. The
yeah.
first week, parang it's irritated lang. It's like a sunburn, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then as you progress with the sessions on your maybe 15th, 16th radiation, yeah, you can really feel it now. I couldn't wear a bra, very sensitive skin. Just imagine your skin's burnt. So from
Okay.
from your normal color, it becomes black. By the end of the session, it's black. That kind of burnt. So that was very painful,
Okay.
but
So,
doable.
let's say doable. So you did 33 days, diba? So, initially I was quite hesitant to ask you about this. Because sometimes, the family members or your friends don't know how to deal with it, diba? Because sometimes they don't know how to react. So, if you were in that journey, what kind of support would you need from your family members or your friends?
Well, I guess, and it's different strokes for different folks, right? So I'm really highly independent. So I didn't really need much. So for example, my radiation, I'll do it myself. I have my driver bring me to the hospital and then have, 30 minutes of radiation less every day for 33 sessions and then get out. And then at that time, because I didn't want people to know, I would go straight to work. Like nothing happened. Yeah, right. I
Bang
think it was
klasika.
only, I mean, kasi to me, in the beginning, hindi naman talaga kasi masakit eh. Pagod ka lang.
Mm.
You feel like you're tired, right? But, you know, apart from that physically, it wasn't that bad. Um, and also work was for me a way to get my head away from, oh, I have cancer, oh, I'm going through treatments, So it was a way for me to kind of get away from my own self, my own brain, my
Okay.
own kind of being negative and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
So there, it was only the end, to go on my 25th or 26th session. That's when, wow, after each session, I'd go to the car and I would be literally baksak. Like my whole body would I'd be asleep the second I get into the car. And because of that, I couldn't have the energy to get to work. So then I had to tell my staff and my team what's happening, and that if we had meetings, if it was possible to have meetings at my house na lang. So work from home even before work from home became a thing,
Yeah.
diba?
So
So there.
I know you're very careful with what you eat. Were you always been like that, or it was a lifestyle change for you after being diagnosed
So
and going through it?
right. So okay, I have a history of misbehaving, right? And I think we'll all go through it. When I was in grade school and high school, I used to smoke a lot, right? Because that was a
Okay.
cool thing to do, right?
Yeah.
And then at some point, we all kind of learned how to go out and drink. So I was drinking,
Mm-hmm.
not excessively, but I could drink, right? And then, but even then, even as a kid, when we were growing up, I was never into processed food. I was
Okay.
never into burgers and whatnot. I would have meat, but not often. So when I was
Okay.
diagnosed, I was actually pretty steady. I had quit smoking by then. I was not a hard drinker. I was always just wine. And in terms of diet, I was more fish and vegetables. So things that changed for me when I think the first 2 years after I was diagnosed, after all my treatments, because I was really very careful. So I didn't have any sugar at all, none. No white sugar, no cakes, no cream, no dairy, no chocolates, no cheese. I hardly had any cheese, no milk, no ice cream, no rice, nothing white. So just think, nothing white in your diet. That meant no rice, no bread, no pasta, no cakes, no none of that, which I was happy to do because na nga, parang in my mind,
Ah,
I don't want to go through 33
that's true.
sessions again, right? Diba?
I
Parang
know.
that lesser evil na lang. So
Yeah.
that's why I
So
also lost a lot of weight and all that.
I'm gonna ask you my favorite question. After all this experience, what was your key learning? What was it?
I mean, a lot, right? And good days and bad days. That you're stronger than you think you are, always, right? That's one. Two, at the end of the day, you can't blame yourself or anyone else. Things happen for some reason. My reason. I mean, it took me a while to kind of put this in and understand this. Is my reason is I needed to happen to me so that I can then kind of refocus my energy on other things. Um, and I guess third, you need a support system. As I independent as I am, at the end of the day, you really do need people to kind of pull you up. I couldn't have done it alone.
Wow. Thank you so much, Leah, for sharing us with your
Of
journey. Oh
course,
my God, it's
of
so
course,
enlightening. Kasi
of
sometimes people
course.
don't want to talk about it, di ba? So I think this
Yeah,
is very important for people to understand what to do. Para people are always scared with something they don't know. So Leah, thank
yeah.
you so much for joining
Sure,
us.
sure.
I hope you can join us one more time naman for PR talk naman later on. Thank you, thank
Sure,
you.
no worries. No worries. And if there's anything, Janet, if there's one thing that, the most practical takeaway is that early detection is the best. So have your annual examinations or biannual examinations, especially for women 35 and above, have your breast checked every year.
Okay. Great advice. Thank you so much,
All
Leah.
right. Thanks. Cheers.
Okay, see you.
Bye.
Our next guest is an OB-GYN practicing for 30 years in three major hospitals, and she has pioneered robotic surgery in the Philippines. Let us welcome Dr. Rebecca Singson. Hi, Doc.
Nice to
Hi, Doc.
nice to be here on the show. Thank you for having
Yeah.
me.
Thank you for joining us. So, Doc, sometimes ako, mahilig ako mag-self-medicate, di ba? Kasi minsan, takot ako sa needles kaya ayaw masyado pumupunta sa doktor. But, you know, just because we're also talking about boobs, but I also want to include also the general female wellness, right? Kasi like me, I've suffered endometriosis twice. I had two major surgeries. So, Doc, ano na ba ang mga common illness ngayon for women?
Well, I think one of the most common things we see is like the myoma. No, endometriosis is also very common. Hormonal imbalance, PCOS, grabe yung rise ng polycystic ovary syndrome, especially among the youth. No, so clearly there's a lot of hormone interruption going on because endometriosis, myoma, polycystic ovary syndrome are all hormonal disruptive symptoms, expression of hormonal disruption in the female body, right? So talagang there's a lot of environmental toxins happening, and which we ingest. There's 88,000 chemicals that have found its way into our food chain. So can you imagine the havoc that creates in the human body?
So, it's really what we eat, diba? So, let's say, for example, you're saying that there's a major rise in PCOS, right? Especially for young women. Um, and you feel that this is really what we eat, the toxins in the environment. Is this also hereditary?
Yes, PCOS is also hereditary, because and myoma is also familial, even endometriosis is familial, but then it may be because people eat the same kind of food, right? They have the same
Okay.
exposures. So yeah, I totally believe it's multifactorial, but since eating is like the most consistent thing you do every day, like 3 to 5 times a day, especially if you eat a lot of chemical food, and that's the reason that people should really start to shift more natural choices for their food, because you don't know how these pesticides, these fertilizers, right, and all the other
Yes.
chemicals you cannot even pronounce, how they will impact your metabolism, diba? Before you eat anything, you look if you can pronounce the ingredients that are there at the back. If you cannot pronounce it, nako, don't eat it.
Ganon. So,
Oh,
Doc,
yeah.
let's say, for example, me, I suffered from super bad dysmenorrhea since I was young. And, initially we thought it was normal. What are the symptoms like that people should watch out for or realize that, hey, it's time for me to go to the doctor or it's time for me to have a change in lifestyle?
Well, first of all, if you're overweight, that's already a bad sign that something is not going right about your metabolism. Okay. Secondly, if you have irregular periods, that's not a good sign either, because that means there's a hormonal imbalance going on, and that hormonal imbalance can increase your risk for endometriosis, for myoma, for breast cysts, for cancer of the breast, ovaries, and the uterus. And then if you have painful menses, that's also another warning sign, no? Because that can be a symptom of infertility, which can be a cause of, that can be a symptom of endometriosis, which can be a cause of infertility in up to 40% of patients. So, if something is a deviation from the norm, even constipation, right? Or diarrhea, even a change in your bowel habits is a cause for concern, because gut health, is very important, and it has a lot of implications in terms of disease prevention.
So you mentioned about gut health. Uso yan ngayon, di ba? Bigla lang na rin natin narinig yung gut health. So, what are the changes or what should we watch out for in terms of gut health? Kasi me, myself, I know that there's a lot of issues that arises from gut health.
True. Uh, well, number one, if a doctor gives you an antibiotic, for sure it's going to interrupt your gut flora, because it's going to kill your beneficial bacteria. If it's going to kill the bad bacteria, it's also going to kill the good bacteria. So every time you take antibiotics, you have to replenish with probiotics, no? That because your beneficial bacteria is your first line of defense for any infection, any inflammatory condition that can even lead to cancer. The first step is really an inflammatory condition. So your beneficial bacteria will be one of your greatest soldiers. Okay, and then if you keep eating chemical food, no food with preservatives, ayan, for sure may interrupt yung gut flora mo. That's why I always say your diet should come from nature. What comes from nature? It has to be pinitas sa puno, tumubo sa halaman, or nanggaling sa hayop. 'Di ba? So I say that you should have the puno hayop halaman diet, 'di ba? Kasi that is what is natural. That is what your body can recognize and digest, no? Hindi naman kilala ng body mo. God didn't create you to recognize aspartame, for example, hindi ba? Or, how do you even metabolize the black pigments from some of the soft drinks? Hindi kilala yan ng body mo, di ba? So that's really, really quite important. And you know that if your gut health is interrupted, it can lead to increased allergies, increased autoimmune disease, mental health problems. There's such a rise in mental health in the country, not only in the country, in the world, no, especially now in the lockdown. But most doctors can't even relate it to the interruption of the gut flora, no? Because your intestines produce 80% of your serotonin and 50% of your prolactin. So imagine what happens if you interrupt your gut flora. Yeah.
That's right. So I'm going to go back to the boobs. Okay. So
Yes.
the boobs, because it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Doc, dapat ba kailan or sino ba dapat ang nagbe-breast exam?
Well, most women uh, are recommended to start doing pap smears at 18. Okay, so that's about the right time to see the doctor. And when you see your gynecologist for a pap smear, uh, usually a breast exam is part of that, right? But syempre, women have these hesitation to go see a doctor, especially now, they don't want to go to the hospital. So I think what this has done is that it has turned the responsibility of care, healthcare, to the individual, which I think is should have been what it was in the first place. So I think anybody who's menstruating should should already start monitoring their breasts, because I've seen patients even as young as 16, as 18, with lumps in their breasts. So and breast cancer is detected usually in 80% of women who develop breast cancer. It was because of a lump, no? So it's really the most common symptom that you can detect, which you can actually discover for yourself. So I think as early as when you teach a woman what menstruation means, you also need to make her understand what the hormones how the hormones impact also the breast, and that they need to be taught to do self breast examinations.
Okay. So we're going to go to the physical tip part, no? So doc will teach us how to do breast examinations kasi nga we're all scared to go to the hospital at the moment. So doc, why don't you take us to the steps na on how to do
Okay,
a
sure.
self examination?
Yeah. Well, you should do your self breast examination without clothes, of course, and without the bra, and with your arms relaxed on your side. You look in a mirror and see if there are any distortions in the breast, if it's unequal, if there's a sudden growth in one breast over the other, or if there's any obvious dimpling of the skin, or like the what they call like the orange skin, no, peau d'orange. It there's like that's what you see as the dimpling, or even a distortion, inversion in the nipple. So that's the first thing you have to look at. And then with your hands placed on your hips, press firmly on your hips, and then bend forwards and backwards, and then you look at any changes. This is what will demonstrate whether there's any adhesions, no. If you bend forward with your hands on your hips, and then there's a distortion in the skin, so this already gives you an inkling that something is wrong with the skin underneath. So that should make you suspect that there must be a lump over there. So that's the second step. And then um, and then standing with one hand behind your head, no, you explore the entire breast, starting with the armpits and then finishing with the nipples. So this is actually good to do while you're taking a shower, because the soap is slippery, so it just facilitates the examination. You can feel the lumps much easier, because you have to do it in either a clockwise or a counterclockwise fashion, and you use the fingers to palpate for any lumps while you're at it. Okay. And then with the tips of your fingers, you feel for your breast upwards and downwards, as I've said, and in clockwise or counterclockwise motion. from the outer towards the inner, towards the nipple. Okay. And then while you're lying, you can put a cushion under your back, and then you can repeat all these movements. No, so you put one hand at the back of the head, and then you start palpating from the armpit towards the outer surface of the breast and towards the nipple. Now, it's also quite important to evaluate whether there's any discharge coming out of the nipple. So you need to place the thumb and forefinger and just squeeze around the nipple and see if there's any abnormal discharge that will come out. Because if there is an abnormal discharge, if you're not breastfeeding and milk or pus comes out, that's not normal. Okay, that's really a sign that you have to go for a checkup. Okay,
Okay.
so it's
So,
quite simple to do, but it's something that you can do on a regular basis.
so Doc, para takutin lang natin yung mga tao at po, talagang gawin nila yung breast cancer exam, di ba? Breast examination. What are the risk factors of, having breast cancer?
Well, syempre, if you have a family history, that's one of the major risk factors. And mind you, we have the highest incidence of breast cancer in Asia. I mean,
Wow.
a lot of people don't know this, but we are number one in something in Asia, and that's breast cancer. Okay. So 3 out of 100 women will develop breast cancer before age 75. Can you imagine those statistics? And 1 out of 100 will die of breast cancer before age 75. So, it's quite high, because, and it's a lot because of lack of awareness. No, so if only we can just promote the awareness, then people will not have to die of it because we can catch it at an early stage. No, so other risk factors is obesity. Obesity is really never good for anything. No, because in your fatty tissue, you actually increase the conversion of estrogen in the fatty tissue. And a bombardment of estrogen has been linked to an increased causation for breast cancer. So you need to drop your weight if you are in the obese range. Um, Believe it or not, women who menstruate before age 11 and who menopause after 55 also have an increased risk for breast cancer. Okay. This is because of the increased exposure to estrogen. Also, well, I'm always asked this question, but I try to investigate the use of the bra, right? Underwire bra. I mean, it's something you wear every day, right? But especially the underwire bras, they really impair the circulation in the breast, no, the lymph circulation, which is so important because your lymph is what causes the detoxification. That's how your toxins are exited. No? So if you keep impairing the circulation there, then your toxins can accumulate. And they have found an increased risk of a double the odds ratio of breast cancer among women who sleep with a bra. I did not even know this was a phenomenon. There are
Really?
people who sleep with a bra. Why on earth would you sleep with a bra, right?
I think one of the good things that happened for with COVID is that people didn't have to wear bra for a long time. Like
Correct.
where they were everybody was in lockdown.
You're so
So
right. Yeah.
so
So
you mentioned a while ago getting the right kind of food, eating natural food, doing the breast exam, and of course, doing regular checkups, as was mentioned by Leah. What other lifestyle changes should people do to,
well,
to make sure that, they get more, we're not saying that you're not gonna get it, but you have better chances of winning over it.
Well, of course, if you're still smoking to this day, you better stop it, right? Because if you're not gonna get COVID, you're increasing your risk for cancer. Um, so of course, smoking is a lifestyle, a major lifestyle modification. Drinking at least 3 to 5 drinks per week has been found to increase the risk for breast cancer up to 3 times. You know, 3 times.
Kasama ba wine dyan? Yung, di ba, akala ko ba
Yes,
healthy yung pag-drink ng wine,
healthy
one
for the
glass a
heart.
day?
Healthy for
Yeah.
the heart, pero it increases the risk for breast cancer naman, hindi ba? Ay, nako, parang all the best things in life, diba? So I guess uh, uh, you have to pare it down a little bit to less than 3 drinks a week. Uh,
What?
yeah, I know, right?
Wow,
um,
that's hard. The dairy was easy eh, pero the wine medyo delikado tayo dyan.
Yeah, I heard Leah talk earlier about how she avoided everything that was white, and I'm glad that she did that for herself, because when I've subjected hundreds of patients to food intolerance test, and this is a test to determine what food is inflammatory to your body. Okay, so it's a very individual list, but among my patients, the number one most inflammatory food is dairy. Okay, milk, cow's milk in particular. Secondly, wheat. So no bread, no pasta, no cakes, no cookies and biscuits and all these baked goods, right? And then eggs, especially the egg white, no? And then common then, paradoxically, soy. No, you will read some articles that say that soy can prevent breast cancer because it's a phytoestrogen. But then, none of you can hardly get organic soy anymore. Most of the soy that you will find in the market is already genetically modified.
But when they say non-GMO, is that the good one
Well,
or no?
you still have to check yourself, because even if you say organic soy, like soy is in my intolerance list, so I don't touch it with a 10-foot pole. So you're gonna have to find out for yourself what food is inflammatory to you and what is not. So I think that's quite important if you're to avoid cancer, also sorts of cancer, and even COVID, even
Yeah.
factions, right? Yeah.
Okay. Doc, thank you so much. I think I've learned so much. We discussed just not the boobs, but also everything else. And I hope people will be more proactive in making sure that they get healthy, especially now at this time of COVID. It's so hard.
Exactly. It's such a challenge, and especially to exercise, no? It's one of the major lifestyle changes as well. And of course, because the gym is no longer, very viable for a lot. Even my own gym trainer does not like to go back to the gym. So I've learned to do high intensity interval training by myself by just going to Google links. So I think anybody can do it at home if you just determine to exercise.
So, Doc, where can they see you if they want to talk to you or why they want to touch base with you? Where can they find you?
Well, I do have clinic in St. Luke's Global in room 3305, in Asian Hospital in room 202, and in Makati Med in room 381. But they can just Google my name, Rebecca Singson, Serious MD, and they will be able to set an appointment for an online call before they see me face to face, especially if they have an urgent concern. So,
All right.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Doc. But Doc, I'll extend to you another invitation to be our guest in Chic Chats. But let's talk about the SEX and the laser on the down there. I think a lot of
Yeah.
women will be interested in that talk.
Oh, that's
So
so
once
good.
again, thank you so much, Doc. I hope to see you once again in the show. And thank you for all the information that you shared with us. Thank
You're
you.
most welcome. Thank you for having me.
Okay, that was such an enlightening episode. I hope you learned something from it. So now it's time for us to summarize our tips. So, this is your best life in bullet points. Do your yearly medical exam. For Leah, this was her saving grace. She was able to catch it early on. So the next one is, of course, you need to watch what you eat. Totoo yung sinabi nilang, you are what you eat. And if you cannot pronounce it, don't eat it. And the next one, the third one, of course, is do regular breast exam. Doctora mentioned it's easier to do in the shower. So, there's another thing that you can do besides singing in the shower. And of course, you have to start doing the breast exam as long as the female has started to menstruate. So even your teeners right there, you have to teach them how to do it already. And of course, the last one, you have to watch your body. If there's something out of the ordinary that happened to your body, biglang nag-weight gain, biglang naging irregular yung menstruation, or there's something irregular with your breast, have it checked kaagad. There's no time to wait. Time is really of an essence at this kind of situations. So for everyone watching today, you get a chance to win this special gift pack. All you have to do is answer the question on the comment section below. What were the tips given in today's episode? It can be from Leah or from Dr. Singson. Good luck! So there you have it, your best life in bullet points. I hope you learned so many things today. Once again, this is Jeanette Ipapotwason, and you are watching Chic Channel.